Hello, everybody. Pastor Chris Holland here for Remnant Revealed.
Remnant Revealed.
Here we are. It's another great day, another great episode to share and visit and talk about the needs of our law enforcement officers and our community and just visit together. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great. We're motoring along here. It's been pretty interesting seeing just how the discussions are going and the discussions that are occurring after our discussions, things that we hear from people and see. So yeah, things are going well.
Hey, you had a birthday recently, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I most certainly did. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was nice, and just a nice reminder of the blessings, right? The blessings in life and the blessings of life. Yeah. So,
yeah, I don't ever have any bad birthdays, being a two-time cancer survivor, and one of those episodes died. So
yeah,
my birthdays are always, thank God I'm alive, right?
Yeah,
get another year to knock it out of the park or try.
That's right. You know, it was interesting. We were talking about that, and I'd mentioned to you that I just never have really, I don't know if that was from an upbringing or what, but just have never really placed a real strong, you know, some people have a birthday week, birthday month.
Oh, man.
You know, and it's a big deal. And, you know, birthdays just really haven't been that much of a thing.
Yeah.
With me. I don't know why, but more and more,
awesome.
Though, you appreciate them more and more.
At my age now, when you look back and you look forward and you realize you have less forward than you have behind you, it probably plays a little bit more on your mind that you really want to do the very best you can with every day, every month, and every year that you have left of life.
Yeah, it's a lot like other things, right? It's a time where you can reflect, if nothing else, and then appreciate what you've been blessed with, and also what you've overcome. I think is what happens for a lot of folks, which can be a blessing in itself. Plus,
I now need a fire extinguisher when we put the candles on the cake.
No doubt, right?
Because
you got to just go to the numbers.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I can take a deep enough breath to blow them all out.
Just the little number candles. Then you only need 2.
That's right. Speaking of candles, I got a great verse for you today.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that. I think you'll find this very interesting. It's a great verse. You know, your Bible is full. God put everything you need that pertains unto life and godliness. This 1 Peter is in your Bible. It's not a rule book or just a restrictive book. It's a book of life. And literally everything we need, everything every officer needs, every copper needs, is in that book that you have under your arm right there.
Yeah.
There's a verse, Proverbs 20 and verse 27, that says that the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. That's why I brought these candles. Aren't they cute? You want to have a candle fight.
Mm-hmm.
Searching all the inward parts of the belly. Now, just like in many Eastern philosophies, which, you know, Israel and the people of Israel come from the Middle East, they believe that the center of life and your heart is actually below your navel. Mm-hmm. Many scriptures you'll see where David or King David would talk about the bowels of mercy, or, you know, he groaned from his bowels. The deep-seated place of grieving or joy or excitement.
Right.
You know, like in Japan, they may call it where ki comes from, or you know, maybe Okinawa or somewhere like that, or the Chinese might say chi, you know, the source of energy. But you and I would call it our heart. We would call it the core of our being, where our spirit resides.
Right.
That's why, you know, you train your core, right? When we talk about, if you want your back to be better, you train your core. If you want to be able to have forceful energy and strength, it's not just all in the upper arms or just your muscles in your body. It's from your core.
Well, they say it's where all your strength comes from.
It's where all of it comes from. If you take an injury to your core, man, you're down. It takes your strength from you. I remember, in the old days, in the old Western days, when they talk about a man being gut shot, he was pretty much done.
Right.
He lost everything. He couldn't stop that. So the spirit of man is so important because it is the candle. It's what God lights on the inside of you. It is what guides you. God uses the spirit of man to teach, train, help man know, strengthen, encourage. It's the very core of your spiritual walk and being, which is the core of your life.
Right.
You can train your hands to war. You can train your body. You can train everything physical. You can train your mind. But it is the very core that is the strength of life. And so when I was thinking about, just some thoughts of today and what we're going to look at and talk about, I thought it was a very neat, wonderful scripture. There's another passage of scripture in Matthew chapter 5 that talks about you wouldn't take this candle and light it,
right,
and then cover it up.
Cover it up, yeah.
You got to take everything. There are different things that try to cover up the light of life that's inside of every officer. The things that we see, the things that we hear when we're on scene, and I'm using the word we because, I'm in chaplaincy for many years. You go out, you deal with things with officers. The things that you see, the things that you deal with, the responsibilities, the life and death circumstances, situations, car accidents, suicide. Everything that you see, it wants to come in and snuff this light out. That's why we're here talking and having this podcast called Remnant Revealed. Right. We want to take that stuff off. We want to show and teach and help people know how they can keep that candle lit, keep it burning.
It's the light that reveals, right?
It's the light that reveals. And every law enforcement officer is a light in the earth, a light of righteousness, judgment, justice. They're there as a light of hope, of help. They come on scene when you can't find your child in a crowded fairground where you got a 3-year-old that ran off, which children do what children do. That officer's there. They're the light. They're out to find that child, to see where they went, to get them back to you, to restore you.
It's interesting. Think about this for a second from the police perspective here is, one of the things that we're taught really more through experience than anything, but that we then teach others, members of the public and whatnot, that the number one preventer of crime is light. And so, you'll talk to folks in neighborhoods, they'll be facing a crime or a violence problem or whatnot, and immediately the thought process is we need more cops, right? We need to see more officers. And what's striking to the people in the neighborhood is the officers usually come in and say, no, the first thing you can do, the easiest thing, cheapest thing, and most effective thing you can do is to light your neighborhood up.
That's
right?
exactly
Turn on
right.
your porch lights.
Yep.
Provide some other lighting and illumination, because what we know through experience, and I think it talks about it in this book, is that darkness flees the light.
That's right. So, case in point, I was a part of a group of people that were tasked with helping to reduce violent crime in different districts of our city. And one of the trainings that we went through was to be able to go into a neighborhood and pinpoint or identify some elements that could be changed or removed that would take that violent crime or reduce that violent crime in that neighborhood. And of course, back to your point, light was one of those. We were making a huge push to be able to install greater and more and brighter light in some neighborhoods that had a lot of crime, and those things are being done even to this day.
Right.
So this light in your spirit is a candle to the Lord. It burns. It lights up. So when we talk about the heart of man, when we talk about the heart of an officer, It's not just the flashlight on his tool belt or his spotlight on his car. Every human has a candle, their spirit. And if you and I don't start with our spirit and make sure that that spirit stays lit every day, everything in life comes against you to blow that out, to knock the top off, right? To cover that up. This is not a time and a day. Now, I know people in the world would like to say it's a time and a day that we don't need officers anymore. We don't need the police.
Sure.
You're an idiot.
Till they need them.
Right, until they need them. Right. And they'll be the first one to be dialing the 911
That's right.
off the ringer,
Right.
to get an officer there to help them in their time of need. But we also want to talk to our coppers to say, we want you to make sure that light is lit in your heart every day.
That's right. Because this world will do everything it
Oh
can
my gosh.
to drive it out of
To
you.
just destroy it.
That's right.
To the point where you
To
don't even
extinguish it.
you don't even believe you have a candle anymore. You go to the academy, and you see even if you go to the par, where they're getting ready, they want to become an officer, and they're so excited. And you see, just so excited in their eyes. They're not really sure what all's going to go on, but man, they're fired up about becoming a police officer. And then you see them after they go through the academy, they graduate. Man, they're proud, they're excited. And then you see them 2 or 3 years later.
Their candle has burned down a little bit.
Their candle's a little shorter.
Yeah.
And you look in their eyes and you see that they've come face to face with how much they're really needed. And not just them, but something greater than just their own heart and their own life.
And that's a good point right there. We hear spouses say that, right? That spouses and family members, loved ones, how they see that change in their officer. And that's what it is. They see the change in their eyes.
Yeah.
And they see that change comes from things that their loved one has now seen, been exposed to, right? And it's changed how they look at things. And it becomes concerning. But, to the point that you were just making, I think what happens is the officers see, with all the training, all the knowledge, all the tools that I have available to me, there are things that I still can't fix. There are things that I still can't prevent.
Yep.
And then the realization is, I can't do this on my own, in my own strength, in my own training, in my own education. I still can't do this by myself. And so it's kind of that fundamental fork in the road, right? Where the officer sees, if I can't do this in my own strength, right? Or with my own knowledge, right? What else is there to help me? And so they're really going to have that spiritual epiphany, if you will, one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Of seeking it more, seeking it out, or trying to extinguish it.
Yeah. How do I do this?
That's right.
They're looking directly into the face of pure evil and true darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your average human being doesn't see evil and darkness at that level because our society has been trained and taught we pay somebody to do that.
That's right.
If you don't want to get out and clean out your gutters, oh man, there's somebody, I'm going to pay somebody to. How many times do we say about things we don't want to do or deal with? Well, I'm just going to hire somebody to do that because I don't have time, or I don't really feel like it, or I don't want to do that. And so really that police officer, when they hit the street, even though other mature officers, mentors, field training officers, FTOs have told them, instructed them, talked to them in the classroom, gone through safe scenarios. And when I say safe scenarios, we run through scenarios that are street life actualities. Stress-inducing.
Right.
However, still in the back of the mind of that officer, they know that trainer is not really out to kill them.
Right.
They know that trainer really isn't out to rape that woman that's playing that role or part. They know it's still play.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get out into the street and you go on your first call or your first domestic or your first major situation where it is highly probable that you could lose your life if you don't make every decision right, it can have an effect on that candle.
Right.
And you can't really train for that moment unless you're in that moment.
You know, and that's what officers do, right? So your candle starts getting burned down, right?
Yeah.
Burned out, burned up.
Or we might say gets burned at both ends.
That's what I was getting ready to say, right? Is that many officers, when they're trying to figure out, one, how do I keep my candle from burning down? Or better yet, how do I relight my candle, right? How do I get recharged here?
Right.
Oftentimes what officers start to do is if they can't get the candle relit on this end, they light it over on this other end, and then they start burning the candle on both ends, working off-duty employment, extra jobs, maybe doing something else completely different, which then leads to you start covering what you're seeing and what you're experiencing. You're at that fork in the road, and you're saying, I could go this route that really dives very deep into the issues of life, or I could go this other route where I can just kind of mask this issue of my candle getting burned out. That's right. Yeah. And so invariably, I always say this, that often starts costing a lot of money because we do it, I've said it before, with the big trucks, the big homes, the big families, the big vacations. Yeah. And invariably, when you're talking to the officers, myself included, we discover that it really doesn't get you very far. And it's just masking the issue of this deep-seated need that every one of us have in our spirit, in our core. And, try as you might, you can't get around it. You can't get around that fork in the road. But sometimes officers struggle so much in that position, or even worse yet, get themselves so far in on that other road of trying to mask all these things that it becomes masking it with alcohol, substances, sex, betting, gambling, right? All the other things.
Right.
By the way, this isn't just officers. This is human beings in general,
period.
Right?
That's right.
But oftentimes can be even more accentuated for an officer because what they're trying to mask or cover is so much larger because of the acute nature of what they've experienced. To your point, a major catastrophe, a mass casualty incident, a mutilation or a tragic death of a child in a car crash or a murder from abuse, whatever the case may be. Things that no human should see, our officers are not only seeing, but oftentimes they're seeing it every single day.
Every day.
And so when you go home, how do you mask that? How do you relight the candle? How do you? It becomes very difficult.
I talked to an officer not too long ago that told me, he said, Pastor, he said, I used to see 4 to 5 murders, heinous murders a year.
Yeah.
He said, in the same area, in the same district, I'm now seeing 4 to 5 a week.
And that's happening in major cities across the country.
And you see, and when we talk about murders, I mean, most human beings have never seen a human body sliced up. I mean, where it's down to the bone all over a body or stabbed multiple times or what a true gunshot wound does to the face, the head, the neck, the arms, the legs, what that looks like. They would throw up, they would pass out, they couldn't look at it, they wouldn't want to see it.
Or they think they know because they've seen things on TV.
On TV, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anything and everything happens in an officer's life to snuff out this candle, the spirit of their life, their heart. And that's why the Bible says to guard your heart with all due diligence. Guard your candle with all due diligence, for out of it flow all the issues of life. This is a great candle. This is actually a candle we use for some of our candlelight services that we have, at special occasions. And And it has all the potential. It's wax, nice wick, it's tall, it's ready to be lit. There's only one problem. If you turn all the lights off in this room, even though I have this candle, it's not going to offer one spark of light.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that this candle can offer you any light whatsoever is if it has, now don't start shouting and run around, but if it has another source.
That's right.
It has to have a greater source in order to provide any light, even though it has the potential. All the potential's there. But there has to be another source that sets this on fire.
That's right.
And that source offers a greater flame. There's no flame here. There's no light here. Until that source, now if we say this is the human, this verse, the spirit of man has no light unless God, who is light and life, puts himself inside and lights this spirit of man back up.
Has to be something bigger that overcomes the current state.
Something
of
bigger.
That candle, right?
Which is, this is why even like Alcohol Anonymous or Drug Anonymous, all these different, they always tell you that if you do not come to a place where you believe in your heart in a higher power, they use the term higher power, you and I would use the term God, then you will not be able to sustain or overcome the addiction you deal with. Even those who battle these things in life, they'll tell you, you have to come to some depth in your heart to understand something greater than you has to help you. Even where officers are concerned. Excuse me. You can do everything you can physically, everything you can mentally, but you have a candle on the inside of you, a spirit on the inside of you that has to come to the recognition there's a greater source needed here, or you will either have no light on the inside to guide you in times of deep darkness. Because if you don't think that darkness is coming for you as an officer, you better think again. It's coming.
Yeah.
It doesn't just overwhelm the streets and everybody else. It wants to overwhelm you. And it will overwhelm you with despair, disappointment, frustration, anxiety, depression. It will come to a place and a time where it will make you want to do what you have helped other people through in life, and that's take your own life. Because that darkness means to overwhelm the light that's on the inside of you. Why you started the academy, why you became a police officer, why you had it in your heart to do this great calling that God called you to.
Yeah, that's the point all the time, right? It's not only what we do, but why we do it, and then who we do it for.
And
I find that that's where the real transformation occurs with officers that I know, that I see. Again, I always talk about that, but then I'm always quick to point, myself included, right?
Yeah, and me included. I mean, it's every human
That's what
being.
people need to hear, right? We're not
Absolutely.
just talking in theory here. We're talking through experiences, is that invariably that's where strong transformation occurs, when you start reflecting on not just why you do it, but who you do it for. Yeah. And when you see that you do it because you believe in things bigger than yourself,
that's
helping
right.
somebody you don't know, helping people that can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Right. That's something bigger than yourself. That's and then in that, when you say why would you do that? Right. If you stay focused on because it's important, it benefits something besides me. But then when you start saying, well, who are you doing it for? Well, I'm doing it for my neighbor. I'm doing it for my fellow citizen, all those other things. Where I see the real transformation occur is when you say, you know what? I'm also doing it for the one that called me to do this. That's one that's bigger than all the things that I face, right? And to your point, when you realize that there is someone that is bigger than those addictions, those challenges, the evil that you're facing every day, that's where the officers really have this fork in the road. is they come face to face with the evil that they thought they knew, but they had no idea even existed, which is what we see with our residents, citizens, right? They're paying somebody else to do that, but always point out they never see the great underbelly of society.
That's right.
Because they're sleeping.
Thank you
While
very
they're
much.
resting and sleeping and recuperating
Yep.
and, by the way, recharging and then relighting their candles, there's some other person out there, woman or man, that is standing that line, burning their candle down on their behalf.
And these wicked, evil people, they love darkness.
That is right.
They wait for darkness.
That's right.
They look forward to darkness.
Why does
they
the
hide in
majority of
darkness.
the evil occur at night and in the dark? Right? This isn't something new.
No.
It's been the case since the beginning of time.
That's
if
right.
only there was something that could tell us how that occurred and what actually occurred at the beginning of time.
If only.
If
I
only.
was trying to think.
That's right.
I think
there might be something that's revealed.
Something might
in
be
here.
in there.
That's right.
Revealed, yeah.
That's right.
So.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it is. It's a good deal.
You know, it's telling that, you think about it, that's often what we do as officers. You did make that point, but you think about it, we got light bars on our cars, right? So we're
That's
highly
right.
visible and can be seen, especially in times of emergency,
Right.
right? The red and the blues. And we have that spotlight, right? And so it's not only having the light of your candle, but really what I have found is our job as officers is then when we realize that, hey, what if it's not just our light? You said it earlier. Something inside of your candle, right? That becomes the light. And then when they become the light, really our job is to then reflect that light.
That's right.
And to direct it.
Yep. As Matthew 5, 15 and 16 says, let your light so shine. Where? Before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
The source.
The source. Now, the more you do that, the more connected you stay to the flame. If you've ever held two candles together, the more connected they help each other not go out.
Mm-hmm.
You're an officer, say I'm an officer, and we keep the flame going together. We stand together. How much brighter is the light? How much brighter is two candles versus one?
That's right. That's right.
Now, we do this in my arena as pastors. We marry a couple. They'll take two individual candles, and then they'll hold them together, and then they'll light one candle to signify the covenant that's made. One officer, two officers, three officers, four officers.
Yeah.
When you're really on fire, when you're really lit up, other people are attracted to you because they know you have a source of light that maybe they don't have or they had and it got burnt out. Mm-hmm. And this verse says, arise. In Isaiah, there's a verse that says, Isaiah is looking at the future and sharing what God's showing him about the future. And he says, in the last days, the darkness shall cover the earth. Yes, even gross darkness. That's when it's so dark, you're like, man, this is gross.
Right.
Ugh. But then he says, arise and shine, for your light has come.
That's right.
It's prophesying, talking about Jesus coming to be born, die, resurrect. Your light, and as you receive him, your light has come.
And that's really what you were just talking about, right? Is that Jesus comes along as the light, and he touches your candle,
lights it,
and lights it. And now you've become his light, and then your job here is to reflect his light.
And to stay as close to his flame
there you go.
Daily as possible.
That's what I was going to say. How do you keep your flame going without your candle fully burning down?
There
right?
you go.
You got to stay close to the
So I
to
got
the
four.
source.
I got 4 rules to that. Can I show you those?
Yeah.
I got 4 rules that'll help you on that. 4 rules to keep the human spirit trained, and you can train your human spirit to keep fired up, to stay burning, and not to lose that flame. Number 1 is by meditating, thinking about, into your heart, that book right there that you have.
So you start to internalize that.
That's your source. That's your source of meditation. That's your source of understanding about life. You read, one of my fathers in the faith, he used to tell me all the time, you read a proverb a day that teaches you, tells you how to deal with men. You read a psalm a day that teaches you how to walk with and worship your God. Proverbs. So you go to that book and meditate on that book. It also is an inspiration and keeps that candle lit and keeps the flame high.
I've told you this before. The first time I read through Proverbs, and I think, and I've seen other officers do this, if they don't know that exists, the first time you read that, especially after doing this job for a while, I always hear the same response, the same one that came out of my mouth. Where has this been all my life, all my career? Why didn't anybody tell me this is in here? Because it really lays out wisdom for you to live by.
It does.
Like real world wisdom, right? Not some theological, mystical thing, right? It's real life application that you can apply to your life today.
That's right.
And then I flipped through and I said, well, when was this written? And then you realize, oh my gosh, this was thousands of years ago.
Yeah. But by the wisest man that ever lived, except for Jesus Christ, King Solomon. People came, rich, wealthy queens, royalty people, just to hear him talk about life. Because he had such wisdom God had given him about the things of life. And as you look through it and meditate on it, it brings to you an understanding about human beings and how to live and walk and talk and operate with human beings. Now, you learn good vocabulary, good conversational judo. You learn through the academy and through people that train you how to deal with certain circumstances with your words, whatnot, how to be able to understand how to communicate to people. But the Word of God teaches you how to do it and keep your candle lit, how to do it from the deep part of your spirit, how to understand how people are operating, what they're doing. You can actually even circumvent some things just by having that deep knowledge in meditating on those words, on those verses, on those scriptures.
When you think about that, we train officers to be able to, in police work and in society today, right? The big buzzword that is a no-no that everybody keys in and drives into is profiling, right?
Right.
Profiling's got to be against the
Everybody
law
profiles.
and all these other things. And I think everybody understands it in the context of prejudicial kind of profiling or whatnot. But really what's important for officers to be trained to is how to profile criminal behavior. Right? And so so you teach them signs and indications and things that are consistent with trafficking drugs, transporting narcotics, where people normally hide or conceal firearms or other weapons such as edged weapons on their person or in their car. We teach that. The reason why we know that comes from experience, right?
And people who've lost their lives because they didn't know that.
The experience
Officers
of
who've
others,
lost their lives.
right?
That's right.
Either in a tragedy or in the triumph, right? And so from that, though, it comes from a history of doing this job. And so here again, that's the power of Proverbs. That's the power, I think, in what we're doing, what we're talking about. Remnant Revealed is saying, hey, guys, hey, gals, there is a roadmap out there. There are key things that have been learned, lessons learned that are in this book. And so you don't have to repeat the same tragedies in life, the same failures. You can see what some of the solutions are. It's all laid out for you in here. But again, many of our officers don't know it because people won't talk about it and won't point them to it.
Because they say, well, that's religion. It's taboo. I don't really believe in it. But here's the thing. You and I had these conversations years back about what was coming and about the darkness that was coming. We had conversations, many conversations. about where we were going to be even right now in this particular point in time.
So what's the saying? People who don't know their history are doomed to
repeat it.
Right?
That's right.
And so here again, the value could be, hey, rather than repeating that, why don't you go and learn through history what works and what doesn't work?
Right.
That is actually just as relevant to us here today as it was back then. I looked up while you were talking. Proverbs, just so our folks know, was believed to have been written during the reign of Solomon, which would have been in the 900 BC. 900s. 900 years before the arrival of Christ onto the scene, right?
Right.
So that's 2021 years ago that he showed up, right? And then 900 years before that.
There you go.
Okay? That somebody wrote these lessons learned down that are just as relevant to us today, not just in our police work, but in our lives.
But in our lives, marriages. I mean, listen, in that book, there's something about your marriage, your children, how to deal with a neighbor. You actually uphold laws of how we are to deal with our neighbor because this book says that this is how we should deal with our neighbor. How to deal with the government, how to deal with society, how to deal with stress, how to deal with needing comfort, all the needs of man and life, they're in this book.
That's right.
And that's why we're doing this podcast, to reveal to those who will hear, those who will listen, hey, you don't have to become a burnout officer.
There you go.
That's mean and just hard and crusty and I mean, nobody can stand to be. You don't have to become that person. You can actually do this job, do it to the very best of your physical and mental ability, but have the core of your heart be set on fire with the Spirit of God. Be a light that never gets snuffed out or put out, and continue to share the light of life in the darkest places that you deal with every day. And you can develop and train yourself through the power of God by meditating on what He said about it.
Well, and you know, I would tell officers that, and I would tell anyone watching this that, you know, perhaps if you've never picked up this book or you've been afraid to because just it's the Bible,
right.
It's religion,
right.
It's all these other things.
Or like I hear, oh, hey, the church would burn down if I came to church,
That's right.
Pastor. I love you, but
or this is something written.
Lightning would strike me while I sat
That's
there
right.
and that's not true.
And I think people also think, hey, this is something that's written to tell me how I'm wrong. The last thing I want to do is pick up something that tells me every which way I'm wrong.
Right. You already feel like you're wrong every time somebody in media opens their mouth. So
the great secret, though, is this book tells you how to be right. It tells you how you can be right.
And here's something. My next point number 2.
Right.
Many officers already do it in some degree in their life.
Talk more about
practicing the word. They love their neighbor. You know, the 2 commandments Jesus gave was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength.
Something bigger than yourself.
Something bigger than yourself. And then love your neighbor as yourself. Many officers already practice. My next point was going to be, you can build your spirit, encourage your spirit, develop it, train it by practicing the word. That once you read it, it's applicable. You can put it into practice.
Can I ask you something, though? And I know, you know, I don't mean to keep throwing you off of the points, but, you know, when we talk about love your neighbor as yourself, I think one of the great challenges for our officers, probably many people in general, is what if you don't love yourself? If you don't love yourself, isn't that what we see? People really kind of treating other people the way they think of themselves. How do you overcome that? I mean, that's the great challenge.
Again, I think that's the relevance of meditating on the Word, because many people believe that this book is going to tell them how they are unlovable and that they're just wrong and
That's right.
everything about them is wrong, which it doesn't. It actually tells you that you're so lovable, that God so loved. What's the favorite verse everybody holds up at football games? And
God so loved.
Well, that was until the world became very Jesus anti-Bible. But for God so loved the world, that means you, that means me, everybody in the world,
Everybody.
that he gave his only begotten son. You are so lovable by God. Even though you may say, I'm not lovable, God says you are. Yeah, but God, why would you love me? Because I do. He doesn't have to answer you. You just need to know he does. He doesn't have to give you a reason of why he loves you. He just does. And once you understand that deep in your heart and fires your candle up, you realize that because he loves you, you can love others. That you are lovable. And he wants you to know that he loves you. He's graced your life to know that he loves you. You know, I read a verse not too long ago that says, greater love has no man than he would lay down his life for his friend. And I'd like to say greater love has no man that would lay down his life for a stranger. I mean, think about that. But our officers do it every day. Jesus did it on the cross. People that don't even know him or knew he existed, he still died for their sin. He laid down his life every day. Officers are willing to lay their life down. Now, they don't want to, but they will if it comes to that, to try to make sure that light penetrates darkness and darkness doesn't win.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second, because I think when people hear, especially officers who see the dark, dark evil that exists in this world, right? And they hear that Jesus died for my sins, all they key in on is, hey, this guy died because, and I always say this guy, right? This dude, this guy showed up, all these other things. But that's the key thing here, is that God became flesh. He became man.
Yeah.
And it's because it becomes relatable, right? He knows what you're going through.
Yeah.
He knows what it's like to have your candle burned out.
Yeah.
To be run down, to be tired, to get wore out.
He used to go up into the mountains to pray to the Father, to spend time with him, because he was
relight his candle.
Yeah, to relight
Think
his
about
candle.
that.
Yeah.
See, again, people don't talk about this enough, right? But even Jesus took time out to go recharge, to relight his candle.
Even to when his disciples could tell, hey, Pastor, you need some food. You need to eat.
You got to eat.
You're not, we can tell you're wearing your body down.
I think any homicide detective can relate to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You need to get some sleep.
You need to get some sleep. You need to
eat
get
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, I don't know, that's just so crucial and such a key point. But in that, when they hear, well, Jesus died for my sins, most officers can say, well, I understand a sacrificial act, right? It's a sacrificial love. And I would tell our officers, whether you think you're loving your neighbor or not, you are sacrificially loving them every time you put that vest on and strap on your belt and go to work, right? That is a sacrificial love.
It's huge.
Not only because of what you're doing, but what you're willing to do.
If you don't think that you are in sacrificial love, ask your spouse, ask your children. They'll tell you really quick.
Yeah, because they're sacrificing too.
Because they're sacrificing too.
That's right.
And they understand what you're doing. That's why they pray for you. They love you. They look for you to come home.
So let me ask you this. An officer says, okay, I can relate to that. Sacrificial love. I'm doing that. I'm walking that out in my daily job, my responsibilities, all those things. When an officer is killed in the line of duty, right? I think most officers, because I hear citizens say that, like maybe there's a pursuit over a stolen vehicle. It turns into a foot pursuit. There's an ambush. An officer gets shot, dies, right?
Right.
And then somebody will say, man, all that over a stolen car? Like, he died for a car?
Yeah. No.
Now flush that out, because, see, most officers would go, no, he didn't die for the car. He died for, and then invariably they start talking about he or she died for something bigger than that. Right. It was way bigger than the car. It was what? It was standing this line.
It was light and darkness. You can't let darkness win. So it may be a car one day, but it'll be a life the next day, a child the next day, an elderly person the next day.
So take that next step. Did the officer die lay down their life because the person was bad? Think about that for a second. Did the officer die, lay down their life, shot, killed, line of duty death? Did that occur simply because of the badness of the person involved? Is that why did the officer chase them and risk their life just because the person was bad? It's not why the officer was doing that. The officer was doing, this is where I talk about the reason, the why, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who you're doing it for.
Right.
Right? The officer wasn't just doing it to catch the bad guy. The officer was doing it to what? To protect other people, the community, right?
Because if they do it one day, I can guarantee you they're going to do it again.
And they're doing it in service to their fellow man.
That's right.
But it's not, it's a lawbreaker, so you're doing it to do what? To restore that which has been broken.
That's right.
Well, that's what I want our officers to know. That's what I want people watching this to know, is that's really what occurred on the cross. When we talk about Christ dying for you, he didn't die for you just because you're bad, right? Because people take a guilt trip with that.
Come on, man.
Hey, man,
That's good.
I'm so bad. I put Jesus on the cross. He died because I'm a bad person, and somehow I'm supposed to feel good about that? No, it's the next step.
That's right.
He died to restore you.
That which was broken.
That which was broken.
Adam messed it up.
And I tell you what, officers know better than anybody. We are broken because we are in a broken world.
That's right.
And we tell officers that. You talked about it. You come out of the academy. You're young. You're strong.
Gung-ho.
Gung-ho, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? This job, the job, the world, the experiences you're going to have, they're going to break you down.
Yeah.
That's why we break you down in the academy, to build you back up.
That's right.
This job will then break you back down again. And then this is where the great divide occurs. The job breaks the officer back down again, and who or what is there to build them back up? Who is there to light their candle again?
To get the fire going again.
And oftentimes there isn't.
There's nothing.
Because we don't talk about this.
That's right. Because it's taboo. How you doing? Good.
Living the dream.
Living the dream, right? But what we're saying now is it can't be taboo. We have to shed it and share the light.
That's it.
And reveal
that
these are core issues of life. If you don't connect them, you burn out. But if you connect them, you last, you burn, you're still on fire, into retirement or whatever else. You are able to continue moving forward, and you don't lose hope, you don't lose sight, and you don't lose light.
I think that's the key thing our officers need to hear. People watching this, that's what they need to hear is Jesus didn't die because you're a sinner. He died because of your sin, but he did it as a sacrifice to restore that which is broken, that which is lost.
Yeah.
And here's the key part, to restore you back to your original value.
Right.
The reason why God so loved the world, he made you.
Yeah.
God doesn't make
created
imperfect things.
That's right.
Right? If the perfect one doesn't make imperfect things, people may be made in ways that humans view them as being imperfect, broken, distorted, whatever the case may be. That's a perfection of God no matter what. But this world then breaks the human.
Yeah.
And at some point, God is so grieved by that he's going to give the greatest treasure that he has, his son. Yeah. Any parent can relate to this.
That's right.
Any parent of a fallen officer can relate to this. Gives their son, their daughter, as a sacrifice to restore that which is broken, to restore you to your original value, the value that he has for you. Right. That is a love like no other.
Like no other. So, wrapping this up today, maybe you're an officer, no matter where you are right now, and you're watching this, listening to us, and you feel burnout, get close to the source of the flame that never dies. We call it things an eternal flame. They're really not eternal. I mean, somebody still has to supply some
as long as you
fuel,
keep paying the gas bill.
As long as you pay that gas bill. But there really is a true eternal flame. One. And he can light your fire. He can light your candle and keep it lit. the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord. So we want to encourage you today. Take what we're saying, think about it, put it in your heart, meditate on it, and ask the Lord to light you up.
That's right.
He'll do it.
And
He'll do it.
The way that you get close to the source is just open this up. Maybe
we didn't get through all my points. I mean, we'll do another one. We'll keep this going on the next one. But
maybe somebody could just open this and just jump into Proverbs. Just look it up. Just read some Proverbs, and it'll recharge you. Like the saying goes, if it doesn't light you up, your wood's wet.
Meditate on the Word. Practice the Word. Do an act of love. Do an act of love. Do an act of love. Hey, it's been great to be with you.
It's good stuff, man.
It is
good stuff, and
I
know it's hitting the heart of the folks watching this. And I know I say it all the time, but I couldn't think of anybody better to be doing this with. And
well, same
grateful
here.
for
really appreciate you.
Grateful for you pointing us back to the light.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Rick and I trust that you heard something that will help your life, and if you believe that it would help others, please make sure and share. Like and subscribe. And hit that bell so that you can be notified when the next podcast is available. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.